All right, can't wait to let it rip today, Flo. What do you think we're leading with is the question. You think we're leading with Max Holloway today, or do you think we're leading with the Predator, Francis Ngannou?
I would say probably Ngannou. I'm still scared. I'm still frightened by that knockout, which is good because now you could see me when he did the knockout. I was like, dude. I thought he was dead. I honestly, that was one of the scariest moments watching mixed martial arts was when Bob Sapp slammed Big Nog on his head with like a pile driver, and then that uppercut from Francis Ngannou.
So I think I texted you, and I'm not saying this to be funny. Francis is gonna kill someone, Ken. Dude. You know, like I'm telling you, one of those follow-up shots is gonna kill somebody. You know, what an absolute freak. And I'm glad I can just bounce stuff off of you here for free today because I have so many questions. And I don't know how best to put the actual knockout in historical context. If you want to tell me it's the greatest knockout in UFC heavyweight history or UFC history as a whole, I'm not going to argue with you. Joe Rogan says this is the scariest fighter he has ever seen, and I think if there's an authority on this, it's Joe, who has been octagon side for every great heavyweight fight really in UFC history and all the big ones. This guy is a total freak, and it's the work ethic, it's the natural gifts, it's the hunger, not just the financial hunger, but the hunger for his dream. I think this guy's going to affect major change in Cameroon, potentially when it comes to MMA legalization in France, and big picture when it comes to this heavyweight division. I mean, imagine you're Stipe Miocic's wife watching that this weekend. I don't think it's settling to see Francis do that to another human being.
Well, you know, anytime two heavyweights get in the octagon, it's dangerous, right? I mean, these are guys that can hit extremely hard. They got 4-ounce gloves on. When you get a guy like Francis Ngannou, who is essentially looks like an elite offensive lineman in the NFL, and a guy who knows how to punch now. But what was most impressive was the reaction time. To see that Alistair Overeem was ducking, not only ducking down, but also kind of dipping to the left, and the accuracy of that uppercut was unlike anything I've ever seen before. It's hard to see some of the lightweight fighters do that and recognize that and be able to react just like that, and Francis was able to do that. And, man, that guy is scary. He has power that is absolutely insane. And some people are like, well, you know, Overeem, he doesn't have the best chin. I don't care if that was a rhinoceros running at 100 miles an hour. If Francis connected, he was going to knock out whatever was in front of him. So just an absolute freak. And the fact that, you know, he really didn't succumb to the pressure here. Going against Alistair Overeem, a guy who has fought so many elite strikers. Now, I don't think it was the smartest game plan from Overeem. I thought he was going to fight him like he fought Junior Dos Santos. Use your kicks, keep him on the outside, use your range. Don't be in boxing range against a beast like that. That's the one way you were going to lose that fight, but I just don't think he could help it. Ngannou was pressuring him. You know, I think it kind of freaked Overeem out a little bit that he wasn't able to take him down very easily. I think he felt the strength of Ngannou and just kind of said, wow, this guy is freakishly strong.
So how do you quantify how powerful Francis Ngannou is compared to Stipe Miocic, for example?
Well, I think Miocic, he puts together more combinations like a Frankie Edgar. He takes you out with more volume. Can he knock you out with one shot? Sure, absolutely, if it's precise and all that stuff. And Ngannou has that kind of power that Dan Henderson had, where it doesn't have to be so accurate. He hits so damn hard, it doesn't matter what he hits, he's going to break something. It doesn't have to be so perfect. However, Ngannou's pretty precise with his shots as well. His reaction time is very good. He knows where he needs to hit. He's recognizing where the fighter is moving. He's not just swinging wild. Sometimes he does swing wild. But in this case, in this particular knockout against Overeem, he knew exactly what he was doing and landed with an accuracy that you really don't see too much from a guy that big. So, again, obviously we knew about the stats. We knew about his test heading into this, about him being the hardest hitting guy in the UFC and maybe in the world. And he absolutely proved it, man. And it doesn't take a whole lot with 4-ounce gloves. And the fact that he's able to hit someone full power with that glove is a very scary thought.
Francis Ngannou's pro debut was 4 years and a few days ago, Kenny, and there is footage out there of his only professional loss. He went the distance with a heavyweight who's now 13-2, and a guy who probably will find his way to the UFC at some point in time. His name is escaping me right now, but this is a guy who was homeless on the streets of Paris 5 or 6 years ago, and I think he brings this meanness with him as well that helps, right? And big picture on this night, there were so many fighters that are just totally unfazed by the pressure and the stakes and everything that accompanies trying to perform as a professional athlete when you're trying to break someone physically and not just put a ball in a hole. But what this guy is able to do as a fighter who's just getting started, I mean, this was the #1 heavyweight contender in his 60th pro MMA fight that he just did this to. And we brought up something on the broadcast. Only 3 fighters in the modern era have started their UFC careers 6-0 with 6 finishes. Rich Franklin, Anderson Silva, Ronda Rousey. Now Francis Ngannou is in that class. And of course, Franklin and Silva, it was a little bit of a different era for Ronda Rousey. She was fighting a lot of developing fighters at that point in time. Kenny, no heavyweight has ever done this. And this division is defined by quick fights and finishes. I know we all bemoan the fights that do go 15 minutes with the heavyweights because oftentimes they're not always that entertaining. But no heavyweight has ever done what he is doing. And I am just totally frightened by this guy. To see the reaction from other fighters out there on social media with Derek Brunson and everybody else. Stipe seems unfazed, but I've got to think that that when this fight happens, Kenny, Stipe is going to be the betting underdog to defend his heavyweight title. Am I crazy?
I'm telling you, man, this is a very scary fighter, a guy who really was probably born to do this. You look at his physicality. You look at the fact that his father was actually known as a legendary street fighter in Cameroon, and here he is kind of doing it professionally in a cage now. It's unbelievable, the kind of power that he possesses, and the fact that, like you said, in the heavyweight division, the margin for error is so small. You zig when you should have zagged.
Right.
You're standing up with these guys with 4-ounce gloves. Anything can happen, and the fact that he's landing first and doing it consistently and not really having much of a challenge in the UFC after only 4.5 years of fighting professionally is unbelievable. You just don't see it very often. For the heavyweights, if we're going to put into perspective, a lot of these guys don't have these multifaceted games at heavyweight. You see it in the lightweight classes. So I think this is what has allowed Francis Ngannou to really flourish in this division. But still, I mean, it's still amazing what he's able to do. He's a guy that really learns very well. He's working very hard. So it's not just this talent. He's working on all these skills. He's working with very good guys in Vegas now. And the fact that he was doing it over in France with not a whole lot of training, and now coming to Las Vegas, having access to all these great minds around him, he's only going to get better. So I think the time to beat Francis Ngannou was probably a couple years ago. Now it's an uphill climb for sure, man.
And I know you've said at times he's still a little bit stiff. I do think he has a penchant to get wild. And I think at some point, Kenny, someone's going to hit him very hard. And at least from what I've seen, I have a hard time thinking the chin is not going to hold up. I mean, I just feel like he's otherworldly in terms of the natural gifts. And we brought up the Brock Lesnar comparison. Do you want to get in? I brought up Lesnar over the weekend, and of course, some will say allegedly that has been enhanced at times, but this guy's like afraid to ingest protein powder. He's so afraid to pop. I mean, this is all natural, just an absolute beast, man.
100% all natural. And here's the thing. I mean, is there a chin out there, no matter how good the chin is there a chin that can withstand the punching power from Ngannou? I mean, Cain Velasquez in his prime, I don't know if he could withstand a shot like that from Francis Ngannou. Stipe Miocic has an amazing chin. I don't know if he's going to be able to withstand a punch from Ngannou. Doesn't mean he can't win. I mean, Stipe Miocic, if you're watching that fight, he's thinking, well, looks like I have to clinch this guy as soon as possible, put him on his back, and box him, when Ngannou's on his back in the guard or in the mount position. That's the only way you want to trade with Ngannou, is that if you're mounted on top of him, and that's pretty much it.
Anthony Hamilton is a massive heavyweight, and about a year ago, when Francis Ngannou didn't even know what a Kimura was, essentially, he Kimura'd Anthony Hamilton. It's just like, oh, we're on the ground, so what's the closest limb to me? And let me try and snap the thing flush off your body. Let me ask you this. Vinny Magalhães has never felt anyone as strong in a grappling situation as Francis fucking Ngannou. So if the power on the feet wasn't enough, but think about that, Kenny, right? I mean, that's high praise from someone like Vinny. He's rolled with everyone who's anyone, and at heavyweight and otherwise, right? So, like, where does that sit with the Brazilian jiu-jitsu master Kenneth Allen Florian? That type of praise,
again, Magalhães is a guy who's been around. He's fought both in MMA and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as well, obviously at a very high level, he would know. He's trained with some of the best in the world. He's beaten some of the best in the world. And the fact that, he has the opportunity to feel that kind of strength and know what kind of athlete that Francis Ngannou is. Vinny isn't the kind of guy who exaggerates or just gives praise lightly. Actually, Vinny is pretty critical of a lot of people and, doesn't give praise if they don't deserve it. And the fact that he's saying that, I think, really means a lot. Again, the fact that Ngannou's training has access to a guy like Vinny Magalhães is totally different, and than what he was experiencing in France. They just don't have that level. So, again, it's not like, Francis is the kind of guy who's going to sit you off his back at this point. He might, but moving forward, I think he's going to be dangerous on the mat as well, which is a scary thought.
Jerome LeBanner and Dewey Cooper in his corner. And, of course, Fernand Lopez deserves a lot of credit here for steering Francis Ngannou away from boxing into MMA and seemingly for knowing his weaknesses pretty well. I know Ngannou hasn't seen a third round yet in the UFC. The longest fight was against Curtis Blades, a doctor stoppage at the end of 2. But I think it's going to take a huge effort from Stipe to retain. Jesus, I hope Stipe is not fucking listening right now.
Yeah.
But it's sort of,
bro.
well, and he wrote "and still" on his Instagram, and I thought it was a great caption from Stipe. But the question beckons, if you are Stipe Miocic, what do you do? And I don't mean you go cycle on or anything. I mean, what do you do in this championship defense? Do you jab? Do you wrestle? What do you do?
As scared as we are watching him, and as scared as probably the rest of the heavyweight division is watching someone like Francis Ngannou, I don't think Stipe is intimidated. Stipe is just not that kind of guy. Stipe has an amazing belief in himself. He is the heavyweight version of Frankie Edgar. Even the way that he fights is very similar to Frankie Edgar. High volume striker, heart for days, a guy who can really do it all as far as wrestling and striking. Knows how to come back from adversity, smart fighter now, and has a ton of experience as well. So I think that the best way is for him to slip under those punches, feint his way in, keep Francis Ngannou guessing, and look for that takedown. Put him on the mat as quickly as possible, and he's got to take him down, not up against the cage like Overeem tried to do, because you can use the cage to kind of lean and kind of defend a lot easier and be more efficient up against the cage than you can in the open mat. In the center of the octagon, that's where Stipe really has to look for those takedowns, where it's going to be more difficult for him to defend those takedowns. He can use motion in order to finish those singles and doubles. So I think for Stipe, the strategy definitely will revolve around taking this man down. He does not want to strike with someone like Francis Ngannou for too long. Certainly not in the boxing range, where Stipe likes to take his fights a lot of times.
It'll be the biggest heavyweight championship fight that we have had in years, Flo. And I think it'll be really interesting if Stipe does get that early takedown to see if he can keep him there and try to extend Francis Ngannou and potentially expose him on the feet. Yeah. But the reason why it's the biggest heavyweight fight that we've had in so many years is Stipe in a lot of respects, who is chasing this greatness. A lot of people said no matter whom he fights in his next